Sorry. Excuse me. Let me just figure out where I'm in. Okay, there we go. All right, so welcome everybody to our webinar today. My name is Anne, and I'm the Advocacy and Outreach Organizer with Sierra Club Connecticut and a member of the Zero Waste Coalition. Welcome to Connecticut Needs a Comprehensive Food Waste Prevention and Recycling Law, the why and the how. So please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat with any pertinent information you'd like to share. We have an amazing webinar for you today featuring Karen from Food Rescue US, Sam King from Blue Earth Compost, Kim from Middletown Recycling Coordinator, and Mark Gonzalez from Conservation Law Foundation, and of course me. Just a couple housekeeping things before we begin. First of all, please keep yourself on mute for the duration of the webinar. It helps and it doesn't distract our presenters and the other folks on the webinar. So if you could keep yourself on mute. We are having a question and answer session after the presentation. So please put any questions you have into the chat and we will answer them at that time. We have a lot of information for you, so we want to make sure that we get to everything. If you put a question in the chat and we don't get to it during the webinar, we'll send you the answers via email, along with the emails of any of our presenters, in case you think of anything after we are finished. The session is being recorded. I will include that recording in the email I sent out as well. I will also be sending out more information throughout the session on how you can help pass the important legislation we'll be talking about here today. So thanks so much. All right, so our agenda here today are welcome, and then we will have the background on food waste and prevention. We will talk about food rescue. We will be talking about where our wasted food goes, the current Connecticut law regarding composting and food, some of the deep pilot programs, the Food Waste Prevention and Recycling Act we're hoping to have passed this year, and then I'll have a call to action and our question and answers. So let's begin with this slide. This slide's a chart of Connecticut's municipal solid waste stream and its various components. That 2.3 million tons per year is a shocking number for a small state like Connecticut. It's frustrating too when you see that much of this waste could be reduced, recycled, or reused. You'll see that food waste and other organics make up 33.4% of the solid waste stream. So where does all this waste go? Most of it ends up in one of our 4 incinerators in the state, and until recently there was 5, but the Mirror facility in Hartford was closed this past year. The rest is shipped out of states to landfills in Ohio or Pennsylvania. The largest incinerator in the state is in Bridgeport, an environmental justice communities, with 3 other small ones in Bristol, Preston, and Lisbon. Incineration is an extremely dirty form of dealing with trash, releasing dioxins, carbon monoxide, and other toxins into the air. It also creates toxic ash, which is landfilled in Putnam, another environmental justice community. Incineration contributes to pollution here in the state, particularly in these overburdened communities, further dirtying our already poor air quality and contributing to climate change. Incineration is a poor solution to waste management, as is shipping waste out of the state, polluting someone else's backyard, being shipped in diesel trucks, contributing to pollution and carbon emissions. Connecticut's been using these methods for 40 years to deal with our waste stream. Our incinerators are aging and are an unacceptable way of dealing with waste. And you can bet your bottom dollar that the bids are already coming in to replace those existing incinerators with new ones. Shipping waste out of the state is unsustainable and polluting, and the cost to taxpayers and municipalities continues to rise. We must start to tackle this issue on the front end, not on the back end. We need zero waste solutions. So what is zero waste? The conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without burning and with no discharges to land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. So as you can see, this is the zero waste hierarchy. It goes in descending order from most effective and beneficial at the top to the unacceptable at the bottom. So we need to rethink, redesign, reuse, reduce and reuse, recycle and compost, material recovery, residuals management, and then unacceptable is at the bottom. By following these steps, we can reduce our waste stream to the point where very little will be in the unacceptable category. Ideally, there'd be none. So we need to reduce, reuse, and compost and recycle as much as we can, particularly something as low-hanging as food waste. And that's what we're covering today at the webinar. So this is the EPA's brand new wasted food scale. It was in October of 2023. There's a couple other presenters that will be talking about this today, so I'm not going to go into too much depth. I just thought I would throw it out there for good measure at the beginning. We hope to avoid landfill and incineration once again, if you see at the end. So starting on the side of the most preferred, I'm going to turn it over to Karen from Food Rescue US. Karen?
Thank you, Anne. I'm Karen Sajazi. I am the co-site director for Food Rescue US here in Fairfield County, Connecticut. We have a presence throughout the state of Connecticut, both here in Fairfield County, in the northwest corner, and in the Hartford area. There is a robust amount of food donation that takes place in the state of Connecticut, and we're joined in doing that by a grassroots organization in New Haven, as well as the Connecticut Food Share, which has a statewide retail rescue program. We work at tackling food waste and food insecurity at the community level. And we're working to see that food is used in the way it's intended to be used while helping people in need. It's a really nice intersectionality to what we do. The other piece of it is obviously helping the climate by keeping food out of landfills. And next slide. Thank you. More than 40 million Americans in the United States do not have enough food to feed themselves and their family. Those are our food insecure. And at the same time, 40% of the food created and grown and produced in this country is wasted. That doesn't show that we don't have the food to feed people. It just, we're not getting it to the right places. And that's where we come in. We work in logistics. Next slide, please, Anne. We're guided by the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Act, which was later amended and updated by the Food Donation Improvement Act, protecting food donors from liability and making it much easier for us to do our job, which is remaining dedicated to eliminating hunger and food waste. We engage our volunteers and food donors through our proprietary web-based app, which directly transfers nutritious excess food to social service agencies, directly servicing the food insecure in our communities. Next slide, please, Anne. Food waste is very real in Connecticut. Throughout the United States, it's a huge problem. We're seeing more and more states with comprehensive laws on the books to keep food out of landfills, whether it's through organics recycling or food donation, because we really sit, as Anne said, at the beginning of that wasted food scale. When so much food is generated, 1.1 billion pounds of surplus food, 21% of our freshwater use goes toward growing that food. So food waste wastes 21% of our fresh water, 19% of our fertilizers, 18% of our cropland, and 21% of our landfill volume is actually food waste. If all that food waste was a country, it'd be the third largest greenhouse gas emitter. And a lot of that trash, as we all know, is hauled out of our state. Next slide, please, Anne. Just another look at the wasted food scale that we all love, especially because we sit at the right side of it. So we do our best to get food from our donors while it is still edible and can be used directly by the hungry bellies that are in all of our communities. Next slide, please, Anne. 1 in 8 children are living in hunger in the United States, and 8% of Connecticut residents live in food deserts where healthy, nutritious food is not available to them. They don't have access to a grocery store, and then that is a huge issue for the food insecure, who also probably don't have resources to get themselves to a grocery store if there's not one in their area. Next slide, please, Anne. So here's how we work. It's a really lovely, convenient model. I'm obviously a very big fan of it because I am here. Our volunteers rescue excess fresh food from our food donors and deliver it directly to social service agencies, as I said. Those food donors range from large grocery stores to smaller markets, catering businesses, restaurants. When people have conventions, we rescue excess food. We're seeing a huge increase in rescuing food from schools. As well as farmers markets when they're in season. It's an excellent way to get fresh produce to the food insecure. Our receiving agencies range from community kitchens, shelters, food pantries, family centers, and even smaller organizations that help children in need, people who are recovering from addiction, various agencies with people suffering from food insecurity. Next slide, please. So we have a proprietary web-based app, which makes this very sustainable and scalable. It allows all of our site directors. We ourselves are based in 24 states with nearly 40 sites. We have about 4,000 volunteers. Fairfield County is our largest site, extremely active with a really, really robust group of volunteers. They're able to see what donations are available, sign up to make that food rescue, and deliver it directly to the people in need. Next slide, please. We have been a leader in food recovery since 2011, and we have a proven track record of impact and the ability to scale nationally. We do more than 400 weekly rescues here in Fairfield County. It's a little bit like air traffic control. We're very busy in our logistics. We have saved more than 49 million pounds of food from landfills. And as I said, we have nearly 4,000 volunteers. Next slide, please. Wow. I think we have some pictures of some of our food rescues. Just a taste. We also do swoop in for those rare moments that come in, like a truckload of 40,000 pounds of cucumbers that are suddenly available and need to be distributed. So we love some of those strange challenges that come our way that help food not go to waste. We've also started partnering quite a bit with restaurants when they are in the opening phase and have to train their staff. All those meals have to be cooked for training, but they're not consumed. We rescue those prepared meals and bring them straight to social service agencies to be consumed by those hungriest. Next slide, please. And this is just a little bit about what you can do to join the movement and get involved. We always love hearing about people who want to donate food or social service agencies that maybe we've missed and would like to receive some food. And we would love to help you get involved by being a volunteer. I don't know if there's another slide there, Anne.
Oh, that's the last one.
Yay.
Oh, thank you so much, Karen. That is amazing. You do such good work. That was a beautiful presentation. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was really amazing. So thank you. All right. So if you have any questions for Karen, you can save them till the end, or you can put them in the chat now and we'll monitor the chat for questions near the end. But yeah, worthy cause if you're looking for a volunteer opportunity to really make a difference on the ground. All right. So next we have Sam from Blue Earth Compost. Go ahead,
Sam. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
It's really nice to be here today. And before I get into my presentation, I really want to throw a stamp of approval behind the work that Food Rescue US does. I am also a volunteer. It's a really easy thing to fit into my day. They make the process super simple. It's like it's like on my way to work. I don't have a big car, so it's not like I can take a whole bunch of stuff. And I found a rescue that works for me. It happens every week on the same day. So definitely, if you have free time, and not even a lot of free time, and you want to get involved, I highly recommend it. My presentation. I am Sam. I'm one of the owners of Blue Earth Compost. We are a food scrap hauler based out of Hartford, Connecticut. We've been around for about 10 years, and we are environmentalists that turned into business people. Where we fit in the food waste cycle is that we are trying to provide access and accessibility so that those that want to be able to keep their food out of their waste stream are able to do so. Our biggest clients are places like grocery stores, hospitals, universities, stuff like that. But we also offer household services for those that either can't or don't want to compost themselves. So we'll pick up small little containers from them and keep the food cycle moving rather than it getting lost in a landfill or an incinerator. Next slide. This is just a little bit of our bona fides. Been around for 10 years, family-owned company. That's my partner, Alex, on the right. We have collected over 44 million pounds of food scraps and counting since we started, mostly using the big dump truck style that you could see behind us there. We travel all over the state to pick up food waste wherever it is. We have tried to say yes more than we say no about where we go. Next slide. So you're going to see this a bunch, but yeah, we're the next step down. If you can't prevent it or feed people or animals with it, the next step to do is to compost or anaerobically digest the material. And the next slides in this presentation are kind of going to show you what happens to food if you give it to a company like us, where we take it, and how it gets turned into beneficial end products. Go ahead. So most of us in this webinar are probably familiar with backyard composting. I just wanted to use it as the first example because when you think about, all of us here have a place where we live. And when you think about the most beneficial use for food that can't be eaten, the best thing that you can do is compost in your backyard. What we have here is, kind of what I grew up with, the one on the far left that was just a pile in the backyard. It'll work. The idea is you want to get oxygen in there. That's how you make sure that you're actually composting rather than just creating a mini landfill in your backyard. So, that was something that I didn't know about when I was a kid. I could just throw this material in the backyard, but no, you need to be a little bit more active in the process. And then you can kind of step those things up by getting what's called a compost turner, the thing in the middle, or a 3-bin system, which is, I think, that's sort of the Rolls Royce of backyard composting systems. You just move the material along as it decomposes. It makes a very, very good high quality compost. Next slide. So beyond that, we could step up sort of that backyard process. And this is how the majority of material gets composted. It's industrial scale. And that word aerobic there, you can see at the top of the presentation. Aerobic means with oxygen. So oxygen plays a big key role in this process. The 3 technologies that you see here from left to right, the first is called an in-vessel process. So all the materials, the feedstocks, the organic materials that we know can decompose, like the food, like grain waste, leaves, grass clippings, and such, they get put into a vessel, and there are gears and augers inside of it that move the material around constantly. These are really preferable because you can control the process really quite well. It speeds things up because you're getting so much oxygen and the heat and the moisture. You're just able to do it quite well, but it's a little bit more expensive. The one in the middle is what we call aerated static piles. This is a sort of a new low-tech way. It's fairly new that a lot of composters are starting to move towards. And the idea here is that instead of moving the material around in order to get it decomposed, what we're doing instead is pushing oxygen into the pile. So those are tubes that are connected to a fan, and they blow oxygen on a schedule into the pile. You still have to turn it a little bit, but it saves a lot of time with machinery and labor to be able to do it this way. And in comparison with that, like the more traditional way that industrial composting has happened is the one on the far right. The machine that you see there is called a windrow turner because these large piles are called windrows. And what it does is it drives over the pile, and there is a corkscrew that is in between the wheels in the area of the axles, and it just drives over and turns the pile. It's not rocket science, but it's part science and it's part art. You're just trying to work with the microorganisms and the different small insects and such to give them the kind of environment that they want in order to do their job right. Next slide. So the other way that a lot of material is composted is through the process of anaerobic digestion. Anaerobic, in contrast to aerobic, is a process done without oxygen. And a lot of the food scraps in Connecticut specifically are processed this way when they're separated out of the landfills and incinerators. Basically, the idea here is that we take those same organic materials, and when you put them into an environment without oxygen, it makes it so that the decomposition process is accelerated. And there are specific microorganisms that live in these kinds of environments that will digest the food scraps. They're different from the kind of microorganisms that exist in a backyard pile or an industrial scale compost pile. So what they do is they digest the material, and the two resulting end products are methane gas, natural gas, and the digestate, which comes in either a liquid or a solid form. The biogas, the methane, is burned to create electricity, and it can heat the buildings that the anaerobic digester exists in. And the digestate is turned into a fertilizer. If it's a solid product, it needs to be composted afterwards to finish the composting process. And if it's a liquid product, it is just generally applied to large scale agriculture as a fertilizer. It has a lot of nutrients in it. There are other ways that you can use these end products, but that's the way that we do it in Connecticut. Next slide. Oh, and here's an example. We have the largest anaerobic digester in our state is called Quantum Biopower in Southington. They can take 100 tons per day of food scraps. So quite a large facility. They create 1.2 megawatts of power continuously that they sell to the grid. They can take what we call SSO, which is source separated organics. What that means is that the customer or the grocery store separated the organics themselves, but they can also take packaged goods. So if they get, if pallets and pallets of a certain product of chips go bad, they can take that material and they can break apart the packaging, get the food out, digest the food, turn it into compost and biogas, and then also, as best as they can, the technology is actually set up quite well to recover whatever materials are left over there. This digester, there's a question in the chat, is owned by a company called Supreme Industries. They are a materials management company based out of Connecticut, and they do a lot of like clearings. So like whenever there's like a right of way that needs to be made for electric poles and stuff like that, and there needs to be a clearing. That's how they got started, but they moved into this. They moved into food processing as well. And so there was another result, obviously, is the thousands of yards of compost that are created after the digestion process. Next slide. I'm going to quickly go through, how we get the food waste out of the waste stream. So we offer our subscription residential service in certain towns. We drop off that little tiny 4-gallon pail with you. You separate in your kitchen. We pick it up on a weekly schedule or a bi-weekly schedule and get it composted. You get compost back as a customer. Next slide. Working with municipalities directly has been a big focus of ours in the last few years. And thankfully, we have a lot of towns that we can call partners. That takes the form of those same subscription-based services that you just saw, but also drop-off sites at transfer stations. So if there are people in town that are dropping off trash and recycling or this, that, and the other at their town transfer station, why not have a food waste bin there as well? There's curbside collection, which is, a third bin, just like wet trash and recycling that we could pick up weekly at people's homes. Commercial districts is kind of a unique situation. Some towns have ownership over hauling in certain parts of their town. And if that's the case for your town, like Middletown, which I believe Kim is going to talk about later, we can help out with solutions for that. And then lastly, schools. But we want to be a company that can provide solutions for whatever kind of situation comes up, because we're a solution-oriented company. Next. I think this last one just kind of dives into, if you work at a school, if you shop at a grocery store, these places should be separating out their food. And so we want to be able to provide a easy, accessible, simple, affordable solution so that we can help to solve this huge crisis. We are throwing away far too much food, and as much as we can do what we can do on an individual level in our homes, we can make a whole lot of impact when we think about businesses and institutions that we're all a part of. Next up. So I'm teeing up this slide about policy here for the next presenter, but we've had a law in the books that has been designed around the idea of enforcing and making it so that certain generators that generate a lot of material have to find a way to divert it, whether it be through donation or composting and anaerobic digestion. The law started differently than it is right now, but I believe I have this right, that right now, if you create more than a half a ton of food waste per week, and you are within 20 miles of a permitted, that shouldn't be a recycling facility, it should be a permitted facility that can take food scraps, then you are required to separate. And that even though 1,000 pounds a week sounds like a lot, that pertains to a lot of business in some places. However, it still only pertains to certain industries, and that's kind of a big thing. So we've been working for a long time as advocates to say that we need to broaden who is required to do this, both from the standpoint of there shouldn't be a geographic limit, there shouldn't be any kind of exemption on certain types of industries. None of that makes any sense. We need to be moving towards reducing the threshold for creation. And there needs to be some kind of enforcement mechanism, because there hasn't been in the entire, I believe, 12 or 13 years now that this law has been on the books in different forms, that there's been a single enforcement action. And there's been very, very little work on the part of DEEP, our agency that we know and love, to go out and make these entities know about it and enforce it. So we can have a law and we can have advocacy, that's important, but we also need to back that law up and have some teeth. And unfortunately, DEEP hasn't been doing much. And if any of you saw me at the League of Conservation Voters annual meeting a month back, I was wearing a cowboy hat trying to get people to deputize people to go out and talk to their local businesses about this. That is still something that I'm really passionate about. Like, we need some grassroots action on this, because DEEP, I guess, can't do everything. Obviously, we need to keep pressuring DEEP to get off their butts and make this law enforced. But there's a place for citizen action too. And if you're interested in learning more about that, please let me know. So with that, I think I'm going to be moving on to my last slide, my contact information. Please feel free to reach out. Questions, consultations. I saw a lot of questions. I think we're probably going to be waiting till the end for those. So I'll get to them then. But yeah, always available, and super, super happy to be a part of this great group of presenters.
Thank you so much, Sam. That is pretty amazing too. Like, it just I'm learning so much. Like, I feel like I'm already like immersed in a lot of this stuff, but I've already learned so much from today. And it's so good to know that we have folks out there working on this so hard, and just making it just easier for folks to do their things. All right, so next we have Kim from the recycling coordinator from Middletown.
Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for having me here today. And I'm just going to give you a little glimpse at what we're doing in Middletown. We can go to the next slide. And my slides are a little funky, so there are a bunch of bullets. This slide has 4 bullets, just to let you know. So municipalities, as I think we all know, have been concerned about trash disposal for many years now. In Middletown, we've been serious about trying to meet the state reduction goals, the diversion goals, 60% by 2024. And 2024 seemed like it was so far away, but here it is. We have a very active recycling program. We have reuse, refill, waste reduction programs, and many options for organics recycling. We offer 2 food scrap drop-offs in town, free curbside food scrap collection for restaurants in our city district, as Sam had mentioned, backyard compost workshops, compost bin sales. Unfortunately, though, all these programs, only a small amount of the population take part in them. So for municipalities, it always comes down to cost. We're very concerned with the escalating tip fees of trash. In 2019, we were paying about $70 per ton for trash. In the 2000s, it went up to $90 a ton, and now we're at about $115, and some towns are even higher than that. So with the lack of capacity and the costs escalating, we just can't continue to do the same thing as always, and doing nothing is not going to change anything. So we were very active in the Connecticut Coalition for Sustainable Materials Management grant that DEEP's, not grant, the coalition that started in 2020. Commissioner Dyke started that to try to address these programs. So next slide, please. So the CCSMM released a menu of options, and the two most effective strategies for addressing the trash crisis was EPR, extended producer responsibility, and unit-based pricing. And both of these options would offer a significant reduction in trash generation and thus reduce costs. So DEEP felt so strongly about unit-based pricing that they developed a $5 million grant program to encourage communities to pilot unit-based pricing systems, and over 30 communities applied and 15 were chosen. We were one of them. And so just in case you don't know, unit-based pricing offers an incentive for people to reduce their trash by having to pay for what they dispose. It's similar to electricity, you pay for what you use. So Middletown was one of these communities. We decided to combine unit-based pricing with a food scrap co-collection program. So instead of using a separate collection container and truck to pick up the food waste, we're using different color bags and putting them in the same trash cart. Okay, next slide. We started our program, the first phase in November of 2022. It was voluntary, and it was in our city district that includes about 2,500 customers. We delivered boxes of free orange trash bags and green food scrap bags to customers who use our cart service. The rollout was a little rough, but we spent the following 9 months doing extensive outreach for the program. We offered customers free food scrap containers to help collect their food waste in their kitchens. And then we offered numerous community food feedback sessions, and it was presented at multiple public meetings throughout the year, 4 in June and August, before it was approved to move to the next phase. So next slide. Just to go back a little bit to explain co-collection, here customers are instructed to put their food waste in the green bag, the trash in the orange bag, and then both bags go in the cart, in the trash cart, and then the cart is emptied into the truck and then delivered to a sorting facility. And at the sorting facility, next slide, the green bags are pulled out. And then they are delivered, next slide, to Quantum Biopower. And next slide. So we learned a lot from our first phase of the pilot. We learned the logistics of how to do co-collection and that it is possible and that it can work. We found that people were mostly willing and interested to participate. We collected over 100,000 pounds of food waste, and that's significantly more than what our drop-offs collect. It wasn't perfect. We listened and we made adjustments as necessary. Overall, the results were positive, but it was clear to us that a voluntary program was not going to be enough. More participation was necessary to make the program impactful and economical. And that's where the unit-based pricing comes in. A lot of people ask, can't we just do co-collection and not the unit-based pricing? But we really need both. If we had unlimited funding, maybe we could do just the co-collection, but we really need the waste reduction and the savings from that you get from a unit-based pricing program. So next slide. Oh, sorry. Look at this, so fancy. We'll get there. Okay. So then we, in September 2023, our council passed a resolution to move the program from a voluntary phase to a mandatory phase. Customer sanitation bills were reduced, and we created a 2-tier billing system where disposal costs were removed from the customer's bills and made part of the bags, the orange bags. The exact savings was dependent on the level of service, but a typical resident using a large cart picked up once a week saw a reduction of $118 a year. And then this phase will continue. We're in it now until the end of October in 2024. So now customers are paying for their own trash, not their neighbor's trash. They received a cost reduction and use as many bags as they need. Some people are saving money, some people are breaking even, and for some it is costing them more. Now the required bags are more expensive. They do have to buy these bags, and they're not just like a regular bag because they include the cost of disposal. It's similar to buying a US postal priority mailing box, where the cost is not just for the cardboard box, but you're paying for the shipping as well. That's kind of a good way to explain it. And we've had to explain it quite a bit. Next slide, please. So in rolling out this mandatory phase, our greatest concern was for renters. The savings went to the property owners. So we encouraged landlords to pass the savings on to their tenants by giving them a reduction in their rent or by providing bags, but only a handful of landlords did this. So for many renters, it was a new expense. So we did develop an assistance program to help renters and really anybody going through any type of hardship. They receive a limited amount of bags and they are instructed they need to use them wisely. Okay, next slide. We do have people who feel we're asking too much. They just can't reduce their waste or they don't want to try. And we say, challenge us. We offer free waste audits to help people. We pulled a couple overflowing carts to determine if we could reduce their waste. And this particular one had 10 bags of trash, and we got it down to 2 bags of trash, 1 bag of food scraps, and the rest was recycling. And all that was in the regular trash cart. Next slide. So far, it's still early, but so far our data is showing that we're achieving over a 30% reduction in waste so far. I love this slide because it shows when we started back before recycling in the late 80s. We were generating about 900 pounds per person per year. And then recycling started and we were at 740. And now in Middletown, we're at 461. So we went down from around that 740 to 461. Stonington has a unit-based pricing program, and they have for years, and they're at 386. And then Brattleboro has one along with a food waste program, and they're at 225. So that's our goal. I don't know if we'll get there, but so far preliminary results show that it is working. And next slide. So these are lessons that we've learned as we move through this phase 2 of our program. We all generate trash. We all have an opinion about trash, and it can get quite emotional at times. We do feel that it is possible to reduce your waste and save money, but you do have to try. It's important that the system it be mandatory. The system has to change, and it has to be mandatory to really have an impact. Continuing the way we are is just not sustainable. And we in Middletown feel that it's a disservice not to try to get this under control. Just like in a utility, you need to make adjustments for hardships. And we have lots of opinions on outreach. People get their information from so many different places these days. It's really hard to reach everybody. And we have tried to reach everyone. Social media is especially challenging, I will say, as many people probably know. Penalties are necessary for compliance. It's not fair for some to do it and some not. And the state grant funding was very important for us. It provides money for outreach, for data collection and analysis, and gives us a safety net to allow us to try this program. Okay, just one last quick one. So what's next? Agree that we do need a stronger, I'm not going to go through all these so you can bullet through. I think there's 5 or 6 of them. We do need a stronger policy for organics in this state. It's important. I feel it's important that the system has to change. It has to be mandatory. There has to be some incentives for people to do it, and that is critical. And then education and outreach are also key components that we all need to do. I totally agree with Sam that we do need enforcement. However, it's not just deep needs the funding. We need the legislature to provide the funding so that deep can do that enforcement. And I'm going to leave it at that. My contact information is in there. There we go. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. Go Middletown. That's amazing. Yeah, no, it's so good to have like that. That's why we have a pilot, right? So we can get the numbers and get the lessons and get like, how it can actually work. So thank you so much. I'm sure there'll be some questions for you too. So next we have Mark. Mark's from Conservation Law Foundation, and he'll be talking about the legislation we're hoping to get passed this year. So go ahead, Mark.
Thank you so much. Yes, so I'm Mark. I'm from the Conservation Law Foundation. We're a regional organization doing a lot of just like advocacy and like litigation throughout and we're pretty new to Connecticut, but we've been working in the region for a while. So we're on our food waste bill. My slides are not as fancy as Kim's. I'm so sorry. If I knew I was going after her, I would spend a lot more time like with the graphics and everything. But yeah, over the bill. So next slide, please. So I want to just go through like a few, just like the highlights of the bill. A lot of this right now, we're still waiting for like finalized like drafts language from the legislative committee. So we've submitted a draft. We're working with Deep on some more steps. We think this is like best practice. So as written, all designated generators, as defined by the act for that year, will be like prohibited from sending their surplus food and food scraps to any solid waste disposal areas. We're really separating, obviously, like the surplus food in the law between like foods, like and food scraps. Just like we're capturing, it's like the EPA's priority. So it's really important the law, like you don't just call it food waste from the beginning, because there's still a lot of like edible food we want to capture in the beginning. And then add this like as defined by the act of that year. There's not the exact language in the law, but designated generator is going to gradually descend. Like I mentioned, we're starting at 26 tons right now. And that's when 2025, the bill passes this year, it would like start right there. It would like eliminate that 20 miles that's already been eliminated. So it would start there. And then by 2028, it would gradually scale down to everyone. So like 2025, 26 tons, 2026, 13 tons. Then by 2028, it'll get down to all households. And the real goal of this is just to enshrine the EPA's wasted food scale as like our priority of uses. We would want to capture composting. We want to capture like, donating food. We also want people to like just reduce first. Yeah, next slide, please. So part of how we're gonna do this is we do people talking about enforcement and like what that will look like. So the current plan is to have all the large scale generators, so everyone who's producing over 26 tons, submitting an annual report to DEEP. That'll include this report, like the amount of surplus food they donated, the amount of food scraps that they've diverted for like agricultural uses, the name of transporters and facilities used, and like a description of like packaged foods and like any issues also. These are all this important to capture. This is still like draft language. So we also think this is like a best practice. It's not exactly sure like what it will look like or what like, what the legislator will agree or what DEEP will agree is like their best, like what they are like wanting to do and like how to best implement the law. But we think this is like a best practice. Next slide, please. And a lot of this bill really is like directing DEEP to kind of just like continue to like work on materials and to continue to like take steps. We think it's really important so they create some educational materials for both generators and the public. They like, as like Kim mentioned, it's like you will always need more outreach. There's always more to do. So it's really important that like it's easily accessible and that everyone can like understand like what they need to be doing. And especially like the source separating and at-home composting and like any donation policies. I think like a lot of us like have spent a lot of time doing this. I think I have thought more about food waste and like the zero waste scale in the last 3 months of my life than I have in the whole first part of it. So I feel a lot more comfortable talking about it and like I know it now, but before this I did not know anything about food waste or anything about like zero waste hierarchy. So it's really important to like meet people where they're at, and these policies are like meant to just help with your life and to help like, we're all reaching for like the same goal. We all have like larger same goals, but do it together. It's also going to direct deep to support municipalities in their designated recycling coordinators. It's really just important to help work with the cities. The cities are the ones who are like doing this actual work. Like a lot of like the day-to-day. So just really like making sure that we're supporting what's already happening. And then just also, this is based off of New York law. New York has like a list of large scale generators. It just ensures like compliance. It's a little bit of like we see you, we recognize you, like make sure you do what you're supposed to be doing. Because there's like a publicly available list. So we all be able to recognize like, okay, you're not doing what you need to be doing. Next slide, please. And the big thing is always like, okay, how are you going to pay for this? So currently, we've been working with Deep, as I mentioned. They said that as written, they could support this bill with existing resources. Deep has reiterated to us that they do not have to ask for any money from the legislator to get this done. I think I go into a little bit next in the next slide of like how to pass a law, but when you like have a little like financial note, like it's going to cost money, they're way less inclined to actually act on it. So we're doing our best to just find programs and find policies that work within like the existing budget. We've also been pushing for the climate pollution reduction grant. This is money from the EPA that all the states and like counties and municipalities and like different like regions of government can kind of like fight for funding. The EPA is giving out a lot of money to help like reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and the state has already identified this as a priority as like a way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So this funding would give municipalities the money to like actually do the work, and it'd make this huge like influx, and it'd be part of like many larger programs to like really transform the way that we handle like gas emissions in the state. Next slide, please. And this gets into, we're in a short session. Our short session is very peculiar in this state, the way that we do our little government. So in a short session, it's really all about the committees at the beginning. So you need the co-chairs of the committee to agree that the bill is their priority, and they're going to present it to their full committee. So far, we've already been meeting with the co-chairs of the Environment Committee, and they've introduced this as a bill concept already. So once it's been introduced as bill concepts, they vote on the concepts. We're just waiting to see like actual finalized language now from their lawyers. Our lawyers did our part, and now we just have to hope that their lawyers do their part. From there, if it gets introduced, the committee is going to hold public hearings. Public hearings are a great place for people to get involved. You can come, you can testify, you can like submit written testimony, or you can do it in person, say like, hey, I believe in this, I think this is super important. The current co-chairs are Gresco and Lopes, whose names I'm forgetting right now, but Gresco and Lopes are the co-chairs in the Senate and the House. I just saw that question pop up. But yeah, so it's a great chance to just like stay on top of stay and like comment when the bill is available for that. They'll vote whether or not the bill goes forward. There's like a joint favorable report that they're gonna release. From there, if the committees agree on it, it goes before the Legislative Commissioner and Office of Fiscal Analysis. So the Legislative Commissioner is going to make sure it's like constitutional, and also fiscal analysis gets back to that like money portion. If this bill's going to be crazy expensive, it's probably, they're going to really combat it once it gets to the floor. But then from there, it's like final number, and it'll go to the floor for a vote. And that's going to be really time to also, mobilize people, like stay on top of it. We've done all that work in the committee, and people have like spoken. It's been like exciting. And it's just like continuing to channel that excitement and that work and send it off and make sure it passes strong. It's a crazy session. It's over May 8th, which feels like it's a while from now, but it's 2 months and we don't have language yet. So it all happens very quickly. Yeah, that's my presentation. If you have any more questions for me, happy to answer them later. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. That was amazing and very informative. And we do not, I did see a question, there is no official bill language yet that's come to committee. We have suggested language that we have given to Deep in the chairs from the Zero Waste Coalition, and Deep has given suggested language as well to the Environment Committee, which I believe, Susan, you have the link to if you want to throw that in the chat, but we can also put it in the email that will be tomorrow, which I'll get to in a minute. Okay, so we're up to the action part. What can you do on this call to help this bill pass and to support all the amazing speakers that we saw today? First thing you can do right now, today or tomorrow, is to email your legislator. The link in the chat Samantha will put that in there in case you don't know who your legislator is, you can find it right easy on the CGA website, the Connecticut General Assembly website. And just, send them a quick email telling them that you want a good food waste prevention and recycling bill this year. I will, if you are unsure of what you write, tomorrow when I send out the email with everybody's email addresses, answers to questions we could not get to, and the recording to this, I will send a link to some suggested language that you can sign on an action alert. So you can do it today, you can do it tomorrow, but please do it because the more they hear from us, the better. You can also follow up with a call to them and leave a message or talk to them directly. If you're interested in testifying on this at a public hearing, you can do both spoken or written, and all of us at the Zero Waste Coalition are more than happy to help you with that. And more than happy to give you some language that you can use. And also you can tell your friends. The more people we have supporting this legislation, the more these programs, these wonderful organizations, the better. Legislators listen to their constituents, and these are all great organizations we had here today and municipalities that need our support. So I did see some questions in the chat. That's all we really have for today. So we can go to the chat. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see all your wonderful faces. All right, so going back a little bit, we had some questions here. So the first one was from Pippa. Do biosolids go to Quantum? What is done with the soil amendment that is produced? Does it end up on food crops? Worried about microplastics, PFAS, etc.? Sam,
I'd probably be the best one to take care of that question. I can't speak for Quantum directly, but from my knowledge, no, they don't take biosolids. And a lot of the materials that would transmit PFAS into the compost are not accepted at Quantum. A big one being biosolids, but also there's certain plastics and stuff that carry that kind of stuff and materials. The end products are sold wholesale. The last time I heard, and it has been quite a few years, the last time I heard it was wholesale to Scott's, the garden and lawn company. So could be in those products that you might be buying at a big box store or something like that.
That's great. Thank you, Sam. Next question is, does Quantum and other digesters in Connecticut have the capacity to handle food waste if all towns in Connecticut pass legislation to mandate residential food scrap collection? Does anybody want to take a stab?
Again, I guess I would be the best to, again, I can't speak directly for Quantum, but there's kind of two elements to this question. It's like supply and demand, so to speak. It's not that like individual towns are necessarily going to be making laws for themselves. We're kind of looking towards more like a statewide law. And so it's more so that towns are going to be making steps to get more food scraps out of the waste stream. And if all of them did it at the same time, yeah, we might have an issue. But that's not the way that these things work. Different towns move at different speeds, and different towns have certain amounts of food more than others might. So at current and looking towards the future, like capacity is not the issue. It's more so making sure that we are doing as many things as possible to unlock the food waste out of the waste stream for businesses like myself and Quantum and the other compost processors. We will need to scale up infrastructure some, and we're a big fan of working with anybody who's interested in doing that. But yeah, no, it's the more important thing is to unlock the food scraps.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, question from Peter. Are the bags plastic and how are they processed? I think that was for you, Kim.
That's me, yes. So the bags are plastic. They're made out of recycled plastic. And they are just, right now, they're just disposed. So they're not, we do not capture and clean them for recycling. It's definitely unfortunate that we have to use bags, but that's the vehicle right now that works for this system. I mean, hopefully down the road, they'll be able to design a bag strong enough that you can either be composted or maybe not a bag, maybe something else. I don't know. But right now, that is the vehicle that other communities use in other countries, and that works for this system.
Thank you. Thank you. I have one more question for you, Kim, from Diane. Do food bags break and what is the contamination rate for food scrap?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the bags that we use do not break, and this is why they're plastic. They're pretty solid, pretty good plastic bags. Good if there is a good plastic bag, but they're strong, so they meet a certain specification, so they don't break. That's the whole thing. They have to go through the the compaction in the truck and then the sorting. So we have found that these bags do not break. And the contamination, so we the what we're collecting and keeping track of is just clean food scraps that's going to quantum right now. But I will say there is confusion with people putting packaging in the green bag. So what that percentage is, I cannot tell you, but it's pretty high. We pull out probably another 30% of food waste that cannot go to quantum because it has packaging in it. And some, there are some people who try to sneak their trash in the green bags, but it's more, and that's going to be our next education campaign is don't put your packaging in the green bag, take your food out of it. But it's, what we're collecting right now, we're pretty pleased with, but there's more to get.
All right, great. Diane does have another question, but I think you can probably do that offline. The call, yeah, you all can connect offline. Okay, thank you. Good question. All right, Ian, I believe Bloomfield used compostable bags in their food waste recycling pilot where most of the waste went to quantum biopower. Curious if there would be any impediment to using this in co-collecting approach like Middletown or for food waste destined for anaerobic composting facilities.
So we and Sam can probably talk to this too, but we accept BPI certified compostable bags in our drop-offs, which Blue Earth Compost picks up, and that goes to quantum and they can manage those. However, with the co-collection, those aren't strong enough. So we cannot use them with the co-collection.
No, that makes good sense. Thank you. Heidi, the current co-chairs of the Environment Committee are Senator Rick Lopes and Representative Joe Gresco. All right, Carmelo, and this might have to be it because it's 12:59, but the other questions, I will save the chats. I will send them along to our presenters and we'll get them answered for you. So don't anybody fret. If Deep says they have the resources to do this, why is there so need for so much more funding? All right, ended on that one. That's a good one. It's a really good question.
It's a very good question. So they say they have the funding to like implement these programs like as they are. But I think we're gonna need, like people were saying, a little more infrastructure. It costs money to like help diverge, the education costs money. It's gonna be a lot for Deep. And they say like within existing resources. But I think we've already seen like it's hard for them to implement the existing law. I think if we have like a bigger, more expensive law, like you need more money to, I think ideally you'd have like a dedicated staff person who could do this and who could like focus on this. The issue is that's just very expensive. And then as more like municipalities do it and like roll out bigger programs, you just need more funding to like have every single households doing it, like have the bags, have the programs, help people like divert food and like get it donated. Like I think everyone in every step of the way could benefit from just more money to do like more things. So then like you do your best with like existing resources, but ideally, if there is more money to be had, it'll make everything a lot easier.
That's amazing. All right, we're bumping right up on 1 o'clock. Thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you for the legislators that came today, Senator Maher and Representative Steinberg. Thank you for taking an interest in this. We hope you will become champions for this and tell your colleagues that this is an important thing to pass this year. So tomorrow, yes, tomorrow I will be sending out a recording of this. I will be sending out a link to our action alert. So if you need some boilerplate language for writing your legislators or speaking to them, you will have that. Any answers to any questions that we had and contact information for all our presenters. So that's it. Thanks everybody so much. Really wonderful to see such a great turnout. And I hope you all will become advocates for this. Thanks, everybody. Bye. Oh, did everyone bugger off for me and you, Mark?
Hi. You want to say hi?
I think it went good. All right,
So
good.
good. We're so here, but it went so good. That's so cool. I'm so glad it went so well.
I think it went really well. Okay. All right. Well, everybody else will have a good time and we'll circle back later. But yes, I will make sure everybody has everything they need so we can have a big grassroots movement. All
Yes,
right.
that's so exciting.
All right.
You
Well,
and I-
Congrats. Great
Oh.
job.
oh, thank you,
Thank you.
Diane. Thanks. Good
And you
questions.
have a voice that you could make a lot of money on. You have a very good voice for these
Oh.
kinds of things.
Thank you, Diane. I appreciate that. I call it my NPR voice.
That's right, exactly.
And Pierre Gadois. Coming from New Hartford. All right, y'all. We'll see you on the calls and we'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye.
Bye.